Hello, and welcome to my fourth rotational summary of my playthrough of Strangetown. I have to warn you guys, this one is definitely my most chaotic rotation yet. Let's get into it. So first up is Vidkun Curious. So when we get in, Vidkun is now dealing with the death of Olive, and Drax is doing well in school. So Vidkun calls over Gretchen as kind of a rebound, and the date was going really well, but it was cut short by Drax, who is used to getting his dad's attention 24/7, and he ends up disrupting the date and ending it early. So, unfortunately, Drax hasn't really made any friends at school, and the only people he really talks to is his cousin slash half-sister Mars and his dad, Vidkun. So, the day after the date, when Drax asks for a kitten, Vidkun agrees, thinking it would be a good distraction. So, they adopt Bonkers. Now, with Drax distracted and happy with his new kitten, Vidkun decides to call over Gretchen again. And the date was going really well. We were honestly thinking, like, maybe they'll get married. But then Gretchen decides to kiss another man in front of Vidkun. Vidkun was devastated, but luckily Laszlo and Florence just randomly happened to stop by for a surprise visit, so Vidkun got to hang out with his brother, and that really cheered him up. So Gretchen is like, she turns out to be really unpredictable. First she leaves flaming poo on Vidkun's door, then she calls him and asks him to hang out downtown, and he rejects her because he's still really angry at her. And then when he says no, she shows up at his door and steals his newspaper. Next up is the Smith family. So everyone's been working really hard on their hobbies and their jobs. This round, Jenny ages up into an elder. The Smiths have a nice family day where they go to an arcade. And they have dinner at a diner. And I just want to mention that while we're at the arcade, we see Rip autonomously get rejected again by Ophelia. Unfortunately, at the end of the round, Pollination Tech dies of old age, and the family grieves his death. Next up is the Spectre Household. Right off the bat, Ophelia gives birth to our first set of twins. They're both girls, and we named them Alexa and Olivia. Olivia named after Olive. And the house is total chaos. We have 2 babies and a toddler. But luckily, soon after the twins are born, Trevor ages up into a child. And I just love the outfit he ages up in. He looks like he's selling newspapers on the street corner. I just had to keep him in this outfit. And later this round, we celebrate Alexa and Olivia's birthdays. At the end of the round, Trevor actually befriends Bjorn, who he met at school. Next is the Beaker household. So this whole round, Cersei and Loki really try to get pregnant again, and it just doesn't happen. So at the end of the round, they decide to adopt. And they are actually set to adopt Chloe Curious's baby. And Bjorn continues to be a little social butterfly. He still brings home new friends, and him and Trevor become BFFs. Next is the Grunt Family, where Rip still is not over Ophelia, which we saw before, and Buck is still struggling to find a girlfriend. And honestly, he's really been struggling to connect with his peers. I brought him to the teen arcade multiple times, and he just doesn't really seem to click with anybody, unfortunately. So this round, Buck goes on a second date with Kara, and this time it goes really well. And they finally decide to make it official. Buck finally fulfills his wish and gets a girlfriend. Also, Matthew Picasso and Jill Smith randomly come over, and they autonomously hang out with their best friends. Matthew hangs out with Buzz, and Jill hangs out with Rip, and it's just so sweet. I love all the friendships this family has, so cute. Now that Buck finally has a girlfriend, I notice his mood is totally different. He is so confident now. He always looks at himself in the mirror. So Buzz goes on a date with Kristen, and he ends up proposing, and she says yes. So also this round, Buzz and Kristen ended up getting married on Buzz's birthday. So Buzz also ages up into an elder. Next is the Rosalind family. And we start with Sid and Julian's wedding. Sid and Julian end up adopting Tara, and they bond with their new daughter the rest of the round. Next is the Loner family. So unfortunately, we start off the round with Ajay messing up big time at his job and he gets dishonorably discharged from the military. But that same day, Lola does get promoted and she becomes an attorney. Ajay ends up getting a new position in the show business career. Next is Pascal Curious. So we also start with Pascal making a huge mistake at work, and he gets fired from the science career. So Pascal has become really close to his neighbor Leonid, and Nervous has been autonomously causing a lot of fights with Leonid. We actually saw this while we were playing the Rosalind family, who lives across from Pascal and Nervous. I think that Nervous felt that Leonid was getting too flirty with Pascal, and that's what's been causing their fights. So they end up having a brawl, and Leonid wins the fight. And after the fight, Pascal goes up to Leonid and begins heavy flirting with him, breaking Nervous's heart right in front of his face. At this point, Nervous is not getting along with anybody in the apartment, and Pascal broke his heart, so he decides to move out with what little he has. And unfortunately, not only does Nervous lose his best friend, but he also loses Mars, who he saw has a second daughter. Him and Mars had such a good relationship. So after Nervous moves out, Pascal continues seeing Leonid. Also this round, Mars ages up into a teen. So later in the round, Leonid actually moves in with Pascal and they get engaged. Leonid is actually pretty rich and he's level 9 in his career. Then at the end of the round, the family unfortunately gets robbed and their piano is stolen. Now we're with Nervous subject. So Nervous moves into a motel. And I guess I have to tell you guys the backstory of Sugar Daddy Joe. So if you remember, when Nervous was living with the Beakers, he went to a nightclub and he hooked up with a guy named Joe. So Nervous is attracted to rich Sims with gray hair. So we're like, oh, Nervous wants a sugar daddy, of course. And he was super attracted to Joe when we met him at the club. And Joe is a fortune sim. So we assumed that Joe was rich. So we always called him Sugar Daddy Joe. So when Nervous got back to the motel, we're like, we have to get Nervous to hook up with Sugar Daddy Joe. So we call over Joe as a rebound, and because Nervous rolled the wand to bed woohoo, and just to get his mood up, but Nervous ends up rolling the wand to get engaged to Joe. The date goes really well, and Nervous proposes. Everything seemed like a fairy tale. Sugar Daddy Joe comes in to get Nervous out of the motel. They'll buy a house together and start the family Nervous always dreamed of. But then, Joe moves in and he has one simoleon. One. No! One simoleon! What? I've never had a sim so poor before. I've never seen such a poor townie. One simoleon! He has no possessions in his inventory, and he's unemployed. At this point, everyone was done with Joe. Chat was fed up with him. Everyone wanted me to kill him. But I'm like, no, no, no. And then someone suggested we look at his lifetime wish. He wants to become a criminal mastermind! No! No! Oh God, what did we do? What did I do to Nervous? And it was to become a criminal mastermind. And to me, that was the last straw. Joe seemed dangerous. He was a catfish. He wasn't who he made himself out to be to Nervous. So Nervous starts to get increasingly anxious. Was he duped again? Is this going to end up like the Beakers or worse? Luckily, Grim paid Joe a visit the next morning. Was the Grim Reaper looking out for his son? After 3 failed attempts at seeking others to find a home and the family he always wanted, Nervous decides he doesn't need anyone. He doesn't have a lot right now, but if he could keep working hard, maybe he can earn enough to buy a home and start his own family. After he decides this, things really start to turn around for Nervous, and he ends up adopting a kitten, Bailey, and he gets promoted to a paralegal. Next is the Singles family. We start off with both Tank and Aaron wanting the want for a second child, and they immediately become pregnant. The burglar makes a return in the Singles household and attempts to rob them. Marcus ages up into a child. At the end of the round, Aaron gives birth to a girl, and we name her Matilda. Next is Chloe Curious. And the robber shows up again, the same robber. She's a menace. This time she steals Chloe's TV, painting, and a dresser. She's a full-on supervillain at this point. Mask ages up into a toddler, and Chloe gives birth to Monty. Well, it was nice knowing you. Ah! She's dying! But unfortunately, Chloe passes away after childbirth. So Mask and Monty are taken away by the social worker. Now we're back in the Rosalind family because I accidentally skipped them last round. So this time we went on a really wholesome family vacation with them. I accidentally took a Jay with them. I'm not really sure how or why. But Jay used to be roommates with Sid and Julian. So I think I got mixed up and I accidentally invited him on the vacation. But you know what? He ended up being a nice addition. He really got along with the family and he took a lot of nice family pictures for them. And on the last day of the round, they got to relax at home all day. While we were playing, we also got to see Nervous came to visit Mars. And Pascal ended up stepping out to have a peaceful conversation with Nervous. And I really hope they could be friendly again for Mars. Last up is the De La Rosa house, where Florence gives birth to Tom. And the business is doing really well with Laszlo. And at the end of the round, Tom ages up into a toddler. Thank you guys so much for watching. You could catch the action live on my Twitch, or you could continue watching my rotational summary videos here. Bye!